a couple days ago, snow days, when I was sitting around and sitting in front of this computer, and he was talking about MLK, and he was talking about how, sort of the trajectory of MLK's philosophies really shifted to economics, and it really
Civil
shifted
rights.
to civil rights. My pastor preached about that, not this Sunday, but the Sunday before. That the next logical step for people's empowerment was to really understand economics.
Greetings, my posse. Welcome to the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney. I'm Rodney J. Littles.
Hey, and I'm Rodney Butler. Hey, Rodney, look, finally, man, we getting a break from the cold weather. I'm not outside in shorts and t-shirts yet, but I really enjoyed our first kind of a warm day, man. We felt like the Northeast up here. Where you from? I'm a
Oh,
Southern
bro,
boy,
what you
man. I'm not
say?
used to this stuff.
Yeah, bro, you know what it's all about, man. The Prime Minister of Canada is a little upset with our current president, so he sent all that coal down to D.C. for the inauguration and all up and down Atlanta.
Yeah, it dipped all the way down here. Look,
Yeah.
Rodney, we have a very, very special guest on tonight. So, look, man, we're not gonna waste a lot of time. I want you to go ahead on and get started, man. Opening up the show.
Man, I am so tickled pink to have this young lady with us tonight. I think you're going to be excited to hear what she's about. And we're grateful to have someone up under the Gold Dome who can handle business that we need done.
No, that's
So
right.
tonight, we have Representative Tanya Miller. She was a former U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. She was a Fulton County District Attorney's Office Chief Senior District Attorney for several years. She's been in private practice for a number of years. In her specialization has been wrongful death, serious injury, and complex criminal defense. Uh, and wrongful death. So we're really grateful to have her here tonight. She's currently serving her second term in the Georgia General Assembly in the House, and she also recently was appointed as General Counsel to the Georgia Federation of Public Employees.
Hmm.
Welcome, my sister. Tell us who you are, where you come from, sis, what you're up to, what motivated you to want to get into law.
Oh, now you're going way back. Um, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. My background is similar to most folks. We'll say it's a Black American story. I was raised in a single parent household, as part of the working poor. My mother was a factory worker, a union worker, UAW, Ford Motor Company, until the plant closed. So, of course, you kids remember like events that happen in their lives that kind of where things change. And so, um, we went from being solidly a working class family, still poor, still kind of paycheck to paycheck, but all right, to not having that union job and what that meant for my mom. So, all the things that my constituents have expressed to me that are their concerns were my concerns. So I understand them. Not enough money to pay the rent, living paycheck to paycheck. Uh, what happens when you get sick? So all of those things really kind of shaped me foundationally as a kid. And I just remember sort of thinking back, like, why did I originally want to become a lawyer? One of the things I always wanted for my mother as a child, kind of watching her struggle through life, was like someone to fight for her. Like, who's going to stick up for my mom when she's in these situations, whether it's like workplace discrimination, evictions, repossessions, all of these things. Um, just not having an advocate. And, as a kid, you watch a lot of TV. That's kind of your portal. I was an 80s baby, so that was my portal into the world. And I saw these lawyers doing this fantastic stuff. And I just thought, that's what I want to be. I want to be a lawyer who comes in and steps up in front of the client and who is that person that really fights for them and advocates for them. So that was really kind of how the seed of being a lawyer got planted. It was just based on my background. And yeah, that's it.
Wow. So what was your segue from government work to private work? What was the transition like doing that?
Mm. So I actually started after law school. I started in the private sector. I worked at kind of what they call big law firms, mostly representing corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Graduate from law school, everybody wants the job that pays all the money. I, of course, had the whole family on my back. In law school, I was graduating, went to one of these big firms, hated it, hated it, hated it. So I did that for a little while, but knew that really wasn't my purpose work. One corporation fighting another corporation over money just really wasn't my jam. And so I said I want to be a trial lawyer. By that time, I had seen the O.J. Simpson trial, really dating
Mm.
myself. So
Mm-hmm.
the O.J. Simpson trial was like broadcast live in my law school. And I remember watching Johnny Cochran in this courtroom and just being amazed at how smooth that brother was, how he kept stymieing the prosecutors, how he was crossing the cops up. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to be. I want to be Johnny Cochran. And the conventional wisdom in law school is that if you want to be a trial lawyer, like a courtroom lawyer, you go to the DA's office because you get a
Mm.
lot of trial experience. Yeah, prosecutors
Gotcha.
go to trial all the time.
Right.
So after doing the big law stint, private sector, hating that, I was like, look, I'm just going to get back to me and, live my dream and become that trial lawyer, become Johnny Cochran. So I guess I'll have to go to a prosecutor's office. And thought I would be there for a hot minute just to get trial experience. It was a running joke that when nobody gonna be indicted if I became a prosecutor because I was so, pro to people. The man got his foot on our necks. And actually in doing the day-to-day work, particularly at the DA's office, where I eventually went from being a federal prosecutor to being a prosecutor in Fulton, left New
Mm-hmm.
York, came to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all the victims look like me, like
Mm.
Black children, Black women, um, Black kids, young brothers. So it really became more of purpose work, right? It was part of my growth, I think, as a lawyer because, prosecutors kind of see things
Mm-hmm.
one way. It's very accountability driven. It's very
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, you did the thing. I proved you did the thing. This is what happens when you do the thing. And but in that process, right, we sometimes think about the people who get caught up in the system on the other side of the V. We don't think about the people who are caught up in the system because, like, a child has been abused, or
Mm.
a woman has been sexually assaulted, or somebody's son has been murdered, or a police officer has killed somebody, and criminal charges are appropriate. So I ended up staying there way longer than I anticipated. Kind of got to the end of my journey there. I had a great boss. I worked for Paul Howard for a lot of years, somewhat controversial, but he gave me a lot of opportunity to try big cases and get that experience. And when I left the DA's office, I started working on the other side of the beast. I started doing criminal defense,
Mm-hmm.
and it just opened up a whole another perspective for me, right? Because I was like, wow, I think everybody who's a prosecutor should experience being a criminal defense lawyer and having to defend somebody. And
I
everybody
see.
who's a defense lawyer should
Right.
experience what it's like to represent a victim who's been hurt. I just think it brings more balance
Mm-hmm.
to what our justice system is, all the factors in our justice system that
Mm-hmm.
need to be considered. And so that's how I went from like kind of public sector to private practice. I just outgrown the DA's office,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to try new things more or less.
Gotcha. Excellent. So you're down here in Atlanta, and what motivated you to want to run for public office?
This question, it's almost always the first question that people
It
ask.
wasn't the first question here, but go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, like when people
Yeah.
find out, they're like, "Oh, what made you want to do that?" And so I've said that to say I practiced this question.
Your answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's the truth. It's really the truth.
You
Like,
don't understand.
it's the truth. Like in 2016, Trump got elected. I was in private practice.
Mm-hmm.
I really was always interested in politics, read the Times, kept up with what was going on politically. supported candidates, donated to candidates, ran campaigns, volunteered on campaigns, mostly judicial and
Right,
civil
right,
type
right.
races, courts
Mm.
related. But when Trump got elected in 2016, and if we can, it's almost like so long ago, we forget
I
the
know.
shock to our collective system.
I
This
know.
man got elected, just how shocked we were with all the things he was doing. Well, it was really born out of that shock, that
Okay.
sense that we're the resistance.
Yes.
We, the people, are the resistance to, what looks like fascism,
Mm-hmm.
what looks like a complete undermining of our norms,
Mm.
and being a person who just sort of passively participated in that just didn't feel like enough.
Okay.
And so that really planted the seed, like it was all hands on deck. I mean, I remember for lawyers, there were all of these group chats and Facebook groups where lawyers were just like, look, we got to save democracy. Like the democracy, the rule of law, it's a lawyer's responsibility to protect it. And it is under the kind of threat that I don't think we've seen in our lifetime with this man. And so it started off kind of being engaged in those conversations, um, that I just kind of got pushed into thinking, well, this isn't enough. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be on the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, and then I'll shut up. Sometimes I'll talk too long. So just
No.
No, you're doing fine.
interestingly, I chose the state house because, when Trump came in and part of this Republican agenda, like we're talking about Project 2025, we've been talking about that leading up to the 2024 election. We're now living it, right? But you know, part of the Project 2025 agenda, which has really been a part of this element's agenda, is to um, give a bunch of power to the states, right? To sort of decentralize things that we normally would look to um, the federal government as being the most important, governing force in our lives. It's really like state legislatures. That's where voting laws are decided. That's where reproductive rights are decided. That's where decisions about healthcare are decided. That's where, you are engaged in conversations about, a living wage and working conditions for people. So it just seemed like the front lines of the resistance, and so that's why I chose it.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, what were your expectations in coming in the areas that you wanted to have an influence? Before you do that, full disclosure, Rodney, this young lady replaced William Bodie, who was the representative, because I lived in that district,
Yep.
and he decided to run for state labor commissioner, leaving a vacancy. And this sister stepped up, ran for the seat, and wound up representing the district I lived in. So, and then of course they redistricted her out. So I no longer have her as my representative. But I wanted to let folks know that I
Yes.
do have a, I have had the opportunity to see her in operation and work, and that's one of the reasons I wanted her on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what did I expect going in, and how
Mm.
has that kind of manifested? I think I was not prepared, in all like honesty, coming from like courtrooms
Right.
where, there's a judge who's supposed to be an impartial sort of referee between two sides that are a dispute is before the court, and there are two sides, and there's due process, and there are rules, and the whole point of the proceeding in court is supposed to be that it's fair, right? It's supposed to be fair to both sides. It's not always like that in practice, but that's how it's designed to be. And so I don't think I understood just how lawless Republicans are, and
Mm.
how this notion of fairness is really eliminated when you get into politics, because it's
Mm.
no longer about
Mm.
being fair. Even when I was a prosecutor, I had to be fair to the defense. If I didn't, I could get sanctioned. There were rules that applied to my
Okay.
conduct. Down there, it is just like Thunderdome, right? There's power, and then there's people that want the power, and the people that have the power do everything that they can to keep the people who are trying to get it from getting it. And so the starkness of that, like how people could just stand up and say things that weren't true,
Mm.
and there's nobody there to mediate it. No one's there to say objection, Your Honor. Misstates the evidence. Like there's nobody there. And so that was the first shock, right? That
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
work you do as a legislator, not particularly sometimes a politician, it's not always girded in facts, right? It
Okay.
is a different language that is spoken in politics. It should be more factual, but it's not, and it's really not when you are really kind of engaging in the most stark partisan battles that you can imagine, right? And when we're in the South, we're not in a under the gold dome with a bunch of people from Atlanta. These are people from all across the state who see things very different, who believe that Confederate monuments should exist and they should remain in the Capitol. And so, I think that was a shock. I had never, because had been like cradled in a lot of ways by living in Atlanta. Um, I wasn't up close to kind of like Republican mentality, their policies, how cruel they can be, how so many of them are undergirded in racism. Um, and so when you deal with that, like day by day by day by day by day, it just is, it was not quite what I anticipated it to be. I still enjoy the work. I wouldn't trade it, but it just required me to tap into something different than sort of the reasonable, rational lawyer kind of thing. It's just more like war, really.
So governing is difficult in the minority, I take it.
Absolutely.
Now, when I say minority, I'm talking about
Minority
minority
Party.
party.
Right.
Yes. Well, speaking about minority, however, and this is the Black Man's Roundtable, right? So I got to go there.
Go there, brother.
Come on.
We remember when this philosophy and this moral attitude were dominated by Democrats under the Gold Dome. And at a point in history, if I recall, it was around 2009 or so, I recall a lot of these individuals got elected as Democrats that year and switched over when they were sworn into the Republican Party, and they racialized politics under the Gold Dome. And the Democratic Conference became looking more like the people who are on this program than anyone else. Is that the way you see it? Mm-hmm.
That's right.
The Democratic Party to shift and change. Um, Southern Democrats were a little slower to get to that. So you would have these folks saying they were Democrats, but who would be espousing policy and ideas that aren't really traditionally what you hear Democrats talk about today. So I think it was I can't remember what year, I should know this, that um, the majority party went from Democrat to Republican. We used
I
to
believe
Democrats
it was
not,
2009.
was it
That's when I
2009?
came down
Somewhere
here.
around there.
Yeah.
Um, what it may have been, well, I'm gonna leave the year to you. I'm not even gonna try to guess because my
Yeah.
brain is
It was
fried.
after the Obama election,
They
the first
they
time.
maybe I'm gonna take your word for it because I'm not sure. But this is what I know. I know that Republicans never won the majority. What happened was
Right.
it got so close that it took Democrats in name only who turned on the Democratic Party and
Mm-hmm.
became Republican. And that is what, in fact, gave Republicans the majority in
Correct.
the
They didn't
House.
get elected as a
They did
Republican
not.
majority.
They did
Correct.
not.
Yeah.
They
Exactly.
had
Exactly.
several,
Exactly.
Democrats had several defections from the
Yes.
party
Yes.
who went and became Republicans.
Right.
And so there are many Republicans down there who've been Republicans in power a long time who started out as Democrats. And you might
Right.
not be able to tell.
Yep.
you would not be able to tell. So
Nathan Deal is a good example. He was a
true.
Democratic governor, ran as a Republican for governor. I mean, he was a Democratic congressman, and then ran as a Republican for governor.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
That's
right.
true.
gotcha,
There's a good number of them.
gotcha.
So yeah, that's absolutely accurate about like, kind of what happened between, I think that final push from what the Southern Democrats used to be into what the Southern Democrats became.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
and that's
But
just more in line with what like nationally Democratic
yeah,
politics.
I got you. I got you. I got you. So, but the policies that you fight for and the policies that you push against, they're not targeted at specifically people of color, are they?
No, no,
Okay.
no, because of all kinds of societal factors that I don't have to explain to you black men. A lot of the policies that talk about, economic prosperity, affordable housing, living wages, um, these issues disproportionately impact African Americans, like we are disproportionately impacted by so many things, by our representation in the prison, for example, by negative health outcomes, by maternal mortality rates. Black women are 3 times more likely in Georgia to die trying to have a baby than white women. Um, there are all of these things that systemically, kind of, when you talk about them, shouldn't be solely Black issues. And they're not usually solely Black issues, but because they disproportionately impact our community, um, they are in fact. But I think the Democrats really represent a diverse party with a lot of interests. Not all Democrats are socially liberal, for example. There are socially conservative Democrats, like my mother, who was, been a staunch Democrat, never missed an election, volunteers at the polls. She's a senior now, but she still does that. She's extremely socially liberal. Like, she just is. But it's different because it's not discriminatory. If you
Right.
asked her to vote for a law that discriminated against somebody, she would vote no, even though she would say, I don't understand that, but child, I don't know what that, I don't know about that, like lots of issues, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have a lot of diversity in our party,
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of minority business owners who, identify with Democratic Party and who represent different kinds of economic issues, have a different perspective on economics.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Big Ten party. So,
Mm-hmm.
our issues are broad. They span a swath. And so I really truly view this party as America's party just because we are the ones that are most aligned with sort of fundamental principles about what American society should look like. And that is everyone belongs and everybody's vote matters, and that government ought to do things to the extent it gets involved in your life. It should help your life. It should help tackle big problems that, communities can't tackle on their own, not be dictating specific things about what doctors you see and what kind of care you can get and what decisions you make about your children. And, so yeah, not, we are, I think that our policies are, contrary to how sometimes it gets portrayed, really policies that focus on um, prosperity for every American, fairness to every American, every voice and vote counting. So,
Wow. Some of the issues that we've talked about in the past under the Gold Dome have to do with insurance. Can you tell me a little bit about what are the major issues we should be concerned about in insurance reform?
this is really state talking
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
the fact to say we should be talking
Right.
citizens. When the last time you tried to negotiate a say I don't like this exclusion to can't get insurance, which is essentially always skewed towards insurance company making maximum profits off you and minimizing their risk so that when you need them, they don't have to pay. So there are lots of discussions happening now down at the Capitol about insurance reform, about having more accountability in rate setting. Right now, the rule is insurance companies simply need to file with the insurance commissioner their rate increase and they can immediately start using it.
Wow.
There is no check on whether that's, why are you raising rates again? What's the cause of this? So this is only for your profit. This is only to pad your profit margin. What is it about Georgia that is saying you need to raise these rates in this location or this zip code? Like they just enjoy, I think, too much cover by our government in terms of how they treat our citizens. And it's a big fight because the insurance company is well financed. They're an $80 billion industry. And largely any person dealing with an insurance company is dealing with them on their own. Yeah.
So I guess what you're talking about is the lobby is powerful for that industry.
Exactly.
Absolutely. The
So
lobby is powerful.
go ahead.
The money is legion.
Mm.
And people are very crafty. And so it's not profitable to be down there fighting for the people. Nobody dumping money in your coffers when you're down there talking about, wait, is this fair to working families? Is this fair to small businesses, what you guys are doing? So, you have sort of forces seen and unseen that are working to keep systems in place that hurt all citizens. It doesn't matter if you're white or black or brown. These are systems that are in place in an industry that really enjoys too much freedom to do what they want to do to citizens. I mean, think about it. Do you remember in time, like having to pay $15,000 before your insurance even kicks in? Like this whole deductible system is insane. It's killing families. People can't afford health insurance, and then when you get it, it half covers things. And then when you have insurance and you get sick, the insurance folks are telling the doctors what treatment that they will pay for
Yep.
and what treatment they won't. It's called pre-clearance, right? So doctors have to get permission from your insurance the doctor may see you riding and say, listen, this needs this treatment, this treatment. The insurance company's like, does it? I think he doesn't need that.
Wow.
I don't think he needs that.
Yep.
And so, part of some of this anger, the guy up in New York that was so angry about
Yeah.
how his healthcare had treated him when he was sick,
Yeah.
he lost it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's appropriate. That's never
No,
appropriate.
I know
But
what you mean. Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that these insurance companies are doing people dirty, and nobody in leadership in the majority party is talking about that or wants to talk about it.
Wow. So money in politics is really not a good thing then.
It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. I mean, think about it. If you put money in politics, that means whether the policy is good or not, whoever's got the gold makes the rules.
Mm.
And if the people who have the gold want to keep making the gold, then where does that leave other people? And look, I'm not raging against the system. I do think the Citizens United decision was a bad decision. It's unfortunate that good candidates often can't get their ideas out to the people because, they're being drowned out by folks whose ideas are not better, but just are better financed. In an ideal world, people would choose their candidates based on their merit, right? The playing field would be equal, the ideas would be able to compete, and people could decide, actually, that sounds better than that, and not just be sort of held captive to whoever has the most money.
So what chance do the people have? I mean, where do we get the people's lobbyists from?
It's tough, I think
Yeah.
what the people have, Rodney, is what the people always have had, and that is the ability to organize and mobilize, right? So I think sometimes people don't really get the power that they have, right? The power of grassroots organizing, the power of, folks going out there and volunteering their time because, can nobody pay you, but the people need to understand what's happening. Like, I don't think we're outnumbered. We're just out organized. We actually outnumber them. Like, if you really think about who Democratic policies would benefit, like I was just talking to my colleague about this today, not today, a couple days ago, snow days, when I was sitting around and sitting in front of this computer, and he was talking about MLK, and he was talking about how, sort of the trajectory of MLK's philosophies really shifted to economics.
Right.
And it really
Civil
shifted
rights.
to civil rights. My pastor preached about that, not this Sunday, but the Sunday before. That the next logical step for people's empowerment was to really understand economics. And it was a message that was universal. It was a message that appealed to working class Black people, working class white people, working class brown people. And so, a lot of the conspiracy theorists think that that's really what he got too dangerous. He was going beyond just preaching "I have a dream" to really talking about, how the system itself. There are things intrinsically that are just set up against the working guy, the working family, the working mom, and that if those interests unite, it's great to have everybody distracted by race and this and that. Then you don't really see how the fact that we are distracted by those things really keeps us from collectively moving together for what's best for all of us, really.
You see the voter suppression efforts that have been installed since the 2020 election, and 2016 election, have had an impact on the body politics in Georgia?
Yes, I do. I do think that. I also think the impact has been interesting to watch, right? It's no doubt in my mind that they're doing it. They've always done it. Like, they've always tried to keep poor people and minority people, more specifically Black people, from voting in the South, most specifically.
Right.
It was not hidden. It
Right.
was, no, you, sir, have to count and tell me how many jelly beans are in this jar. No, you go ahead, but you got to stop here and count these jelly beans, right? These are tactics that have existed over time. They're not new. They're more sophisticated. And so yes. However, what I also think is that it has created this awareness in people that it's happening because so many folks were so loud about it, right? Like,
Right.
keep constantly putting them on blast. You had a voting rights, grassroots voting rights organizers just registering people en masse and making sure people knew what was going on. And so it's almost like their suppression tactics ignited something in people. And the problem is when you have to constantly be burning, people get tired of constantly burning, right? They just get exhausted. But so yes, that answers your question. It has had an impact, but it also, I think, has been a motivating factor for people to fight back.
Gotcha.
And I think once people get a little rest and get a taste of this healthy dose of fascism that they're about to get under this man, that it might create some magic for us in the midterms.
Gotcha. So tell me a little about this new leadership position you have.
Mm, mm.
You
So,
thought I was gonna let you get away without telling me
no,
about that,
I
huh?
actually all completely forgot about it. You got me
I
doing
know,
like
I know, I
people.
know.
I
See, I
forgot.
got you, I got you.
Uh, um, so, um, I'm sure your listeners are sophisticated, but there is a Democratic caucus and a Republican caucus, and caucus is just a fancy word for group, right? If you're a Democrat, you're a member of the Democratic group and or Democratic caucus. And so in Georgia, in the House, there are 180 members. There are 180 districts. 100 of those districts have Republicans elected. 80 of those districts have Democrats elected. So there are 80 members in the Democratic caucus, 100 members in the Republican caucus. Within the leadership of those caucuses, there are positions that are elected. I was elected by my members. So of the 80 members who exist in the caucus, to be chair of the caucus, which is not the top position because that's minority leader, but it is one of the top positions. And primarily my role is to um, focus on caucus operations, making sure the caucus is organized, making sure the caucus is getting the information they need, external stuff, fundraising, campaigns, stuff like that. The minority leader primarily focuses on policy, what is happening inside the Gold Dome, and is the face of the caucus. So she would be like the CEO. I would be like the COO. So
Chief Operating Officer. Got it. Excellent. And who is our CEO in the House in the
yeah,
minority?
so we elected Carolyn Hughley, Representative Carolyn Hughley from Columbus.
Okay.
She might be the longest serving Democrat. So Representative
Right.
Hughley.
Did she leave and come back?
No, she never left.
She never left.
actually
Okay.
was there when we were in the majority.
Okay.
One of the
I
few
got
that
you.
experienced life
Got you.
under the majority and now has experienced
Okay.
life under
I
the
got you.
Republican majority.
All right.
She, like I said, is one of our longest serving members, one of the most experienced, I think, legislators down there, just in terms of, knowing the rules, knowing where all the bodies are, knowing how things go, being able to put things into historical context.
Excellent. Yeah.
So she's
Yeah.
really strong in that regard, and has been a unifying kind of force in the like a stabilizing, steady
Right.
force, because she's,
Right.
you've ever met her, she's real soft spoken.
Yeah, I know. I met her. Yeah.
You never met her? Well,
I have met her. Yes.
you have met her,
Yes.
so she's
Sure.
very soft spoken.
Right.
She doesn't get loud. And so I think just her calm, cool,
Right.
kind of steadiness is balanced out by some of our newer members who are down there ready to flip over the table in the temple. Like, what we doing here? Well, why we got to win? We got to win seats because life as the minority party is awful. And so there are a lot of new members. We probably have about half of our caucus has been there under 3 years.
Wow.
So there's a big group of new people, which
Wow.
is really kind of my base, right? As a
Yes.
person,
Yes.
this position,
Okay.
who are ready to do what it takes to win,
Gotcha.
to do what it takes to win.
Gotcha.
And so there's a nice
Gotcha.
balance, right? It's not
So-
like, we're flipping it over right away. We're trying
No.
to keep some continuity,
Right.
but there is a push
Right.
for the caucus to do things differently.
Okay.
Then
That's
we-
good to know. Good to hear.
Yeah.
Some young people, some new minds.
Some new
Excellent.
minds, they're
Well,
energized.
this is fantastic. I mean, this is your second term and you wind up in a leadership position. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's really just the faith that my colleagues had in
Yes.
me, which I'm grateful for. I'm not the only one. I'm certainly not the smartest. We have some tremendous members in our caucus who are really wonderful policy experts,
Good.
who really do deserve the opportunity to show leadership in how we make laws down there, whose hearts are in the right place. So it's my objective, my goal to get them to the point that they do,
Get to that point where they can be in the majority.
where they can be in the majority, where we got, where the chair of judiciary, is looks different and sounds different,
Right.
and
right,
Speaker of the House looks different and sounds
right.
different.
Well, we're almost to the end. I just had a quick thought,
Yeah,
and Rodney can jump in here once I throw this at you. But is there a situation where those 80 votes actually can make a difference on a vote? Tell
there
us.
are situations where those 80 votes can make a difference. So the Republican doesn't have a supermajority, as they say.
Okay.
It's what North Carolina had this past cycle that the Democrats broke through. So a lot of gains in North Carolina, they didn't take the majority, but they broke the supermajority.
Okay.
Um, we can stop things that require three-fourths vote. So there are many issues that aren't just a simple majority vote for the House. So on those things that require a three-fourths vote, constitutional amendments, for example, certain homestead exemption related things, there's just a categories of things that require three-fourths vote. We obviously, as a block, can shut that down if we
Okay.
choose to do that. And
Okay.
then there are things that Republicans don't have consensus on. They're
Oh,
not really like value prop or social issues.
okay.
So for example, let me think of one like truck weights, right? So that's too boring. Let me think of something else.
Gambling.
Gambling. That's
There you
right.
go.
Sports betting. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Such a good host. Sports betting. So sports betting, various issues related to gambling have been on the agenda over various cycles. Sports betting seems to be the one that has the best shot of passing. There are Democrats who don't like it. There are Republicans who don't like it. So, you know, because they don't have enough of their own votes to just make the policy happen, however they want it to happen, which is what they usually do. They're forced to engage with Democrats to get Democrats to vote. So, okay, if we support sports betting, how much of this money is going into the community? How much of it is going to make sure that people have access to childcare? Where can we put this money such that something that's already happening, people going on their phones, sports betting, is actually being used where we think it should go, right? So situations like that allow us a little bit more leverage, and the bigger our number gets, the tougher those votes will get for
I
Republicans.
see.
The more
I
they will
see.
be forced
I see.
to engage with Dems.
Well, I don't know if you can help me with this particular issue, but based on what you just said, the 2/3 on an amendment, if they want to extend the term that a U.S. president can serve, doesn't that require ratification by the states? Yeah, that's my understanding because they can't amend the U.S. Constitution without the states ratifying.
Yes. Yep.
And
Yeah,
that would have to come before your body if it did make it out of the,
that's
you
right.
know,
Well, I'll tell you right now, if so, our Constitution
yes,
requires two-thirds vote,
right,
right? Amending
right,
the Georgia Constitution.
right,
To the extent that there's a necessary ratification by the states of a
right,
change to the federal Constitution,
yes,
I'm not sure what if that's a simple majority vote from the House. I don't know what that would be. It could potentially mean that Democrats have power. It could potentially mean that Democrats don't have power because if it's anything that's a simple majority, which is most things,
right.
um, they can have their way
I
in
got you. I
policy.
got you. Keep an ear out for that, my sister, because it's coming.
Exciting times. It's exciting to be alive and
Well,
to be
well,
making history and being a part of history.
time has flown. It's been a pleasure visiting with
Pleasure
you.
has been all mine.
Oh, no, no. It's been our pleasure to have you and to delve into these issues and to get to meet you. Uh, a younger generation that's coming along. So some of the older brothers and sisters down there have passed the torch.
Yeah, it was great. Well, Rodney, before we let Rep Miller out of here, I just wanted to ask something on behalf of our listeners and and just knowing what they want. We know exactly what our followers kind of the questions that they have. But what I would tell you, Rep Miller, is that here on the Black Man's Roundtable, we are really pushing. I think Rodney is on board as well. Local politics, local elections, local spending, just local everything. Um, and I think that's going to bode well if we do it as a community, especially over the next 4 years, if we really concentrate on local things. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is there any legislation that maybe you can discuss that may be coming out of the Gold Dome that may help with some of the trepidation that the people in the state of Georgia is feeling about, policies and different things that's coming out of Washington D.C. Is there any legislation or policies that are coming from the Gold Dome that you can discuss that may help our listeners, may help our followers feel a little bit better here in the state of Georgia?
Yeah, so that's therein lies the rub. So Democrats have tons of legislation that they will be dropping and will be trying to get heard and will be trying to bring to a vote that we believe absolutely will. Like we are talking about raising the minimum wage to a livable wage. We are talking about using surplus funds to supply grants to small businesses, historically disadvantaged folks who are starting their businesses. We are talking about expanding healthcare to make it more accessible. First, expanding Medicaid and the protections under the Affordable Care Act, but also broadening that so that working families, middle class families, don't have to choose between life essentials and staying healthy. I know we say that a lot, but we really, really mean it. More fully funding our public schools. Schools, the funding for how we deal with schools is more than 40 years old. It is a model that does not
Wow.
work. Our schools are routinely underfunded. Our students oftentimes need more wraparound services. We need to increase literacy rates. Our literacy rates among particularly Black kids and poor kids, so many of them cannot read by the third grade. That's the reality.
Mm.
So, more funding for initiatives to help with literacy rates. We want to expand HOPE to apply to need-based students. Right now, a very limited sect of the community even qualifies for HOPE scholarships, which so many people in Georgia use to go get full rides to state colleges in Georgia. There are various and sundry bills to make sure that teachers' pay gets increased, commensurate with inflation. Funding for mental health services for officers,
Mm.
so that we make sure that our officers are in the best condition they can be in when they are entering into the community and interacting with our citizens. So there are many. The problem is that our policies often don't get brought to the floor because we don't have enough votes to bring them to the floor. So we have to focus a lot on playing defense on bad bills and making sure bad bills don't pass. We fought on
Right.
school vouchers last time, Rodney, and so many others. So that's the nature of the power dynamic, which is why I always come back to we've got to take the majority. We are
Understood.
11 seats away. We can do it.
Amen.
We can do it. We got to
Amen.
do it before they get to redraw the lines again. They get to
And the
gerrymander
census, before the
again
census. Yeah.
in 2030.
Yeah.
If we don't take the majority by then, we will have another 10 years of Republican gerrymandering that we are forced to live under. So it's serious work.
And that's the thing; it's closer than what people know.
It's
And I'm
close.
glad you did talk about the supermajority, so it lets people know that um, no, there's not going to be a whole lot of things that you guys can do. I'm glad you listed all the things that the Democrats want to do. So that way the listeners understand that, look, this is what the people, the Democrats in the under the Gold Dome wants to do. Now, are they going to be able to do it? Probably not, because they have 80 and they have 100 and the Republicans have 100. But I think that we still need to keep pushing what you guys want to do. Yeah, versus what you can do. But I'm glad you guys are putting up the good fight and going to continue to fight them. Which part two of that is, just wanting to know, my last question is, so there's the largest voting bloc in America is the non-voter. Okay, and so they are absolutely a lot of people, in the state of Georgia. They're discouraged. They're just kind of out of it. They've cut a lot of things loose. Some things probably needed to be cut away. People needed to cut away from, but I just want for you, number one, I want to know kind of part two of the last question is, are the Democrats, there's 80 in the House, are in the House in Georgia, okay, are the Democrats, number one, unified? And number two, if you could just leave the listeners with, the followers with, with a ray of hope, because like I said, the largest voting bloc is the non-voters. People are discouraged in Georgia. And if you could just leave them from your leadership position, just with a little ray of hope, Rep. Miller, we would definitely appreciate that on the BMR. Great.
Centralized where it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Make America great again, right? Um, Democrats have so many different folks under our coalition. So as I started in the beginning, I told you that, hey, there are socially conservative Democrats. There are wildly progressive Democrats that believe in things that, the other folks are just like, no, you're way too far out there. But what we endeavor to do all the time, this is true in Washington too, this is really true with Democrats everywhere. We try to stay focused on the things that we are aligned on. We try to find the consensus where we can. Not everybody will agree on every single LGBTQIA plus issue, even within our party. Um, but we will agree that folks deserve to have a living wage, right? And so we try to focus on those areas where we can be aligned, and then deal with the things that we're not aligned on, like a family inside. And that takes a lot of patience. It takes listening to each other. It takes giving each other grace. And I do think that we have to exercise that muscle a lot more because we're Democrats. And then so what's the ray of hope? The ray of hope is that the power is in our hands. You just talked about people who don't vote being one of the biggest blocks. Just imagine if people figured out that all they have to do is tune in a little bit, and participate in this mighty right of that you have as a citizen that was paid for in blood for you. And you have the potential to change it all. And so what I think you'll see Democrats doing now, we've learned our lessons from 2024. We know that we got to do a better job of communicating. Republicans have messaging that is simple, is quick, is usually divisive, but people can unite around being angry. Anger makes people motivated, right? So you figure out how to make some people mad about something. Oh man, they lit. It's like it's on, right? And so we have got to figure out, we have better policies, in my opinion. That's why I'm a Democrat. We don't do a good job of telling people what our policies are, messaging to people in a way that they clearly understand who we are and why we're the best choice for them, or why they should even engage at all. So I think there are folks at the table who get that. I think you will see a lot of folks working to make those adjustments for the upcoming cycle. And I think, we have to yet hold on. We've come too far to just give up now. Our blood is in the soil. This is our country. This is our state. This is our city. We have children. We have grandchildren that we have to leave something for. And so I'm hoping that as the days move on, and as we get better at talking to people and listening to people, that we will break through, because we're really not, Rodney, all that many votes away. 115,000 votes, 105, whatever it was, that ain't nothing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Take a whole lot of adjustment, right?
Exactly.
So we're that close.
That close.
Yeah.
And thank you for that, Rep. Miller. And I hope the two takeaways really from this election, this past election in November, from the voters. I hope the takeaway is that, especially in our community, you don't use your vote as some kind of leverage or punishment. That's not what you should be doing in voting, right? And that we should get out to vote. And I hope that the politicians, the Democratic politicians, have learned to do exactly what you're doing right now, and that is to and learn this from the Republicans, and that is to talk to your people year round and come on every single, no matter how small, no matter how medium or large or whatever, come out there, talk to people on these, talk to constituents on these platforms. And so we are definitely glad that, and this is pretty much a largely non-election year for you got some municipal stuff going on, but look where you at. So I hope that politicians throughout the state, local politicians, follow your lead and come out and talk to your people, and don't be afraid to, come in these spaces. The water is warm. We're not going to bite, but we just want you guys to talk to, the people. We're not too large, but we got about 3,000 folks that check us out, and they're all here local. So we appreciate you, Rep. Really appreciate
you. Amen. Amen. The best of luck to you. And we appreciate your courage, your willingness to serve, and your leadership. And I agree. It's about messaging. We got to stop focus on personalities and on the platform.
Yeah. Thank you, Rep. Miller. We will talk to you soon. Absolutely. Yeah, that was it went a little bit longer, but look, I think we still got a little time.
Yes, sir.
Because I know you want to get to a hot topic, but we're so glad that Rep.
Yes.
Miller and others, and I think seriously, I think that I hope that that's one of the lessons, Rodney, that Democratic politicians have really learned from the Republicans, and that is to talk to your people year round. Donald Trump, that man may as well have been a host on Fox News. That's how much he was on there. And but a lot of times the Democrats, they do want to come out and talk to the constituents in election years, and then especially the black community. They want to hit up the black radio stations and the black podcasts and all that stuff a few days before.
Right.
I think the Democrats may have learned a lesson in that, and I hope that as these 2025 policies continue to come out, that they're doing, which I think you're going to talk about here in a minute, is going to let the voters know, stop playing around with your vote.
Yes, exactly, my brother, exactly.
So, you want to hit the hot topic?
Man, it's so hot this week. I don't even know where to begin, other than the weather was cold and climate change is real.
No, that's right.
I tell you what caught my attention more so than anything, including Project 2025, and that was the directive to the military academies to stop playing the Tuskegee Airmen training videos during recruits training. I just didn't understand the motive. I missed the point. I didn't understand how color had anything to do with it, other than whatever the color of the uniform is that people wear. And the message to me was, well, we don't want black folks in the military. And if that message is the one they wanted to send, and their recruitment goes down in our community because of that, that's like cutting your nose off to spite your face, trying to be racist. Did I miss something?
I seen something today, and I will echo it, Rodney, which is somebody please explain to me how the Air Force taking away the Tuskegee Airmen curriculum or whatever it is. Somebody explain to me how why is that happening without it being racist? And there is no answer. There is no other answer other than racism. We know that historically, first of all, black people have fought in every single battle, every single war in the United States, and I think they have tried to I think that has been retracted, Rodney. I think it has been
Yes, it
retracted.
was
Yeah.
reversed.
So it was reversed, and I knew that it wasn't going to stay up. Being a retired military person myself, I knew it wasn't going to stay up more than 24 hours. But what it proves is that these people in that administration is making just a bunch of knee-jerk decisions that they don't have, that there's really no real, I don't, who is the chief of staff in the White House? I don't even know. But there is no real leadership. It's just all knee-jerk. And when you start fooling around with the military like that and not understanding the history, and that decision immediately, it affected, just like you said, alluded to, Rodney, it immediately affected recruiting. So the military already struggling, man, with recruiting anyway, and now you're going to do that. So yeah, it's crazy, man.
Just beyond me, my brother. And when man, you're in a foxhole, man. You want to make sure the person is capable, armed, trained, knows what they're doing, because your life is in their hands too. And it was just my dad was a retired Marine, okay, and he was a drill sergeant in the colored unit, okay, during the Korean War, and it's just, I grew up knowing, I knew the Tuskegee Airmen were. I didn't find out in school either. I found out at
Right.
home.
Exactly.
So
Like
serving,
most of us, Yeah.
yeah. So serving your country, you should be rewarded for that, not cast aside like you didn't exist. It showed the Project 2025 mentality. That's what I want to use the term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this whole fight against what they call DEI is simply an effort to go back in time and erase us from being participants in this society. And it brings me to my closing thought, my brother. We need to have reconciliation in this country about this race construct. We need to have truth, reconciliation, and repair. Until that happens, America is going to continue to be weaker than she should be, because you're as strong as your weakest link. And if you
Right.
keep making your weakest link weaker, it destroys you, weakens you. So I don't understand how folks want to cut their nose off to spite their face in this country called America, home of the brave, land of the free. I'm ready to be free, bro.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this nonsense.
And right. I'll reword that, and say that usually a country is as strong as its most marginalized citizens. Because, and I know, we, so like you're saying, man, it is all this talk has started to come about reparations and truth and reconciliation, and it was starting to get a voice. And so, when that happens, you need as many distractions as possible, number one, in order to stop that, in order to calm that noise down. Just think about it. You haven't been hearing too much about reparations here lately. You haven't been. See, it was a lot of talk about about Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't have to tell you, being a direct descendant of the Tulsa massacre, and and all of these other people was learning that, oh, it was way more than just Tulsa. That, yeah. So people didn't know that. A lot of people didn't even know about Tulsa. But
right.
then, as they learned about Tulsa, they realized that that there was, right here in Atlanta, Sweet Auburn
Ave.
Auburn Ave, and what is it, Greenwood in Florida, and all over the country, that there was that Black people had really made leaps and bounds as far as wealth coming right out of slavery, right in the Reconstruction, and so here's the thing. So all this talk and all this learning and education about what our ancestors went through, as far as doing well and getting all their stuff burned down and taken away from them, that was starting to take fire. And then reparations was starting to catch fire. And it's like, hold up, let's get even. How do you do that? let's put as many racist policies, as many racist people in politics, in these leadership positions as possible, and let's distract. And that's what they wanted to do with the Tuskegee situation in the Air Force. Let's distract them, have them talk. I don't even know what happened in the 12 to 18 hours that was really going on. Rodney, they probably overthrew something. That's what they do. It's like, well, let them talk about, because black people about to raise hell about, the Tuskegee Airmen. That's, and so while they're raising hell about that, let's do this. So, but look, there's a bunch of stuff, that's going on, and I know that we'll get into as the weeks go on, about the buy-ins and the boycotts and everything else. But I would say this is that I think the most power that we have as black people in this country is our power and our right to vote and our dollar.
Yes, sir.
And that's why, Rodney, throughout the franchise, throughout the platforms of the Black Man's Roundtable, local will be push.
Yes, sir.
Local politics, from state all the way down to your local, to your dog catcher or whatever. And then of course, buying local as much as possible. So we're going to do a lot of talking local, on here. And I think that's all we got left, Rodney. But you know what? That's all we ever had. So we just got to go back to what we always had, and that is each other.
If we're going back, I saw a post this week, and it said there's 3 things we need to focus on. We need to educate our own children.
Yep.
We need to create our own businesses, and as a result, create jobs for ourselves, which means we have to circulate our money amongst ourselves, and we have to do business with each other, and we have to create jobs for ourselves. That's what we're going to have to do to get through this. That's the direction that we have to go, as it relates to survival, in this society that we're heading into.
Absolutely. And Rodney, you've heard me talk about it on this. I can't remember whether it was on this show or somewhere throughout the Black Man's Roundtable, but you've heard me talk about that Saturday school. It was a thing, and in fact, I think that the Jewish community still have Saturday school. And so black people here in America, we had Saturday school back in the day.
Yes, sir.
You go to school and you learn whatever they teaching you, in their ivory towers or whatever, Monday through Friday. But on Saturday, you're about to learn about who we are and our contributions. We can't leave it to them to teach our children. So we need to go back to, I'm going to talk a lot about Saturday school, and I'm going to talk a lot about midwives and doulas. We have to take the birth of our children and the education of our children out of the hands of, this almost, to me, a made up, an entire made up field when you're talking about an obstetrician. Birth is giving birth is not an illness. Okay.
Right.
I do believe in gynecologists. Women are very complicated, in the way that they are built and all that stuff. So I do believe that gynecologists are needed, but I'm not sure whether, this made up profession of obstetrician to deliver a baby. I mean, come on, that is something that another woman can do for another woman. Others can do for others, like we did back in the day. I think we just got to go back to where, some of the old stuff, we really have to bring this back to the forefront, Rodney. And, but midwives and doulas and Saturday school, I'm going to talk about that a lot in this year. Every chance I get.
Important.
So, yeah.
I think it's important that the community needs to hear that. And I'm just grateful to be here in the new year with you, Rodney, and to be on the Black Man's Roundtable. It was a great first season, and I look forward to the second season.
Yes, sir. Our second show in the second season. We're going to keep it moving. Our goal is to do 24 episodes this season, and if we do more, then that means it's either a real good thing or it might be a real bad thing. I don't know, but
Right.
we're going to adjust as we go. So Rodney,
Yes, sir.
great show again, man. I appreciate you always. Like I said, you're
Thank you.
always out there, looking for and getting the right special guests at the right time when we really need them.
Thank you,
and so
sir.
I just definitely appreciate your hard work in producing these shows. So with that, man, hey, you can close it out, Rodney.
Yo, man, you can catch the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Like and subscribe to the Black Man's Roundtable on Facebook and YouTube. And we're also on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. This is Rodney J. Little saying, have a great weekend, and we'll keep rounding them up.
Peace, Rodney.
Peace.
Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.
1,